So, Dad,
Yes.
tell us about when you first started smoking.
Well, that goes back about 83 years.
Okay, no, you just look at the camera. You don't have to look
Okay.
at me.
When I was about 3 years old, that's pretty much where my memories begin. I was having trouble having a bowel movement. And my grandfather, Jack Hughley, built me a potty chair out of plywood. And it had a little, he painted it blue, and there was a little decal on the back of it of a teddy bear. And as it was, Dad was driving snowplow for the city, and Mom worked at Saunders Cafe. Times are tough. We had just moved from northern Minnesota to Wabasha, and so Mom and Dad both worked. And so I was fobbed off on my grandparents to look after me while they worked. And everyone was getting tired of me filling my pants. And every morning after breakfast, Grandma, called her Nanny would put me on the potty chair and pray for something to happen. Nothing ever did. I wanted to go. I understood what was going on, but I just couldn't get things to move. And this went on for quite some time. And finally, one day, I was on the potty chair, and my grandma was at wit's end to get me potty trained so I wasn't filling my pants. And I'm sitting in the kitchen dining room area on my potty chair, and there was a kind of a deal where they kept the dishes and silverware and stuff like that. And Grandpa John, who was a pipe smoker, he kept his ashtray and his pipe on a shelf up there. And I'm sitting on the potty chair, and I'm trying to make my grandma understand that I'd like to have this pipe. And I guess she figured, what the hell? She loaded the pipe, lit it, and put it in my mouth. And I take a few draws off from it. And suddenly I get the urge to crap. And lo and behold, I was able to have a bowel movement. It always worked with a little tea. If I had a little tea along with it, and that was usually at breakfast time. The way they did it back then was they boiled it up on a pot with the tea bags in it. And they poured it in a cup, and it was scalding hot. So the tradition back then among the old timers would be to pour a little bit in the saucer so it would cool. And then they would lap it up out of the saucer while the tea in the cup cooled, and then they could drink it out of that. Well, anyway, that got to be the routine when I was at Grandma's. We'd have a little tea and have a little smoke, and then the potty chair, and it worked. And my grandma was just delighted that she had found the right the right combination. And she told Mom that she had figured it out, but she didn't. She says, Dennis can now have a bowel movement on the potty chair. Yeah, right. She didn't tell Mom about the pipe. So that didn't really work, but at least I got my bowels moving. At least I could have a decent bowel movement. But it didn't work when I was at home. I was still filling my pants. And I remember my mother was just up the wall. Here I am, 3 years old, I'm still crapping my pants. And I remember the last day, pretty much the last day I filled my pants, there was an army cot in the kitchen dining room at home, and I'm swinging. I've got my hands on the bed. I'm kind of swinging on that, and I can feel that turd sliding out into my pants, and it felt good. It was nice and warm. I don't know if you've ever shit your pants before, but it feels good. And Mom figured, that's the end of that crap. I'm not changing his pants. So she let me go all day with my pants full. My ass was sore. And I'm wondering if she's ever going to change my pants. She didn't change my pants till bedtime, which was 8 o'clock in the evening. And my butt was sore. I was irritated. So she powdered my ass up with a little cornstarch. That felt good. But I didn't want to go through that ass pain again. So from then on, when she put me on the potty chair in the morning, I would go. And I was able to, Uncle Jim stayed with us at that time. Uncle Jim was James Pugh, Mom's uncle. And when Grandma Brown sold the point, she went to work in St. Paul for the Ordway Company for their family as a housekeeper. She later became their chef after they found out that she could really make fried chicken. Anyway,
What age did you start smoking cigarettes at?
and now this comes to Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim used to take me to the toilet so I didn't fall down the hole. He'd put me on the seat, and I'm able to talk now. I'm able to communicate pretty well. So I put Uncle Jim up to filching a few cigarettes, butts. Mom never smoked them all the way down. They did have long cigarettes back then, but they didn't come in a pack, really. They came in a little box. And she'd smoke them down, about halfway, and then butt them. And she called them banker's butts. Uncle Jim always wore bib overalls, and he'd put them in that front pocket. And so when he'd take me out to the toilet, he'd light one up for me. And I was able to move my bowels. Well, I developed quite a habit. The smokes were pretty good. And as I got a little older and I was able to walk pretty well, I would filch my own cigarettes. And Dad was a pipe smoker at that time also, and he had these half and half tins that the tobacco came in. And so I take my butts and I'd put them in the tin and I'd hide them out by the toilet. And I'd put a couple of stick matches in there too, you know. So when I would be sent out to use the toilet, I would pick up my tin of cigarette butts and light one up for myself, and it worked. So I'm getting to be old enough to go to the store, which was just down the road past the cemetery. And there was a filling station there and a restaurant, a Tidal Vidal station, and Ed Holian's store. Holian's store was kind of a little short order restaurant, and a lot of truck drivers stopped there, and people would come in. Workmen would stop in for lunch during the day, during noon hour, and I could when I went to the store, I could always have a nickel to buy whatever I wanted. Well, guess what? Cigars then were only a nickel a piece. So when I go to the store, I'd order a La Polina cigar for a nickel. And I'd take that home and I'd put that in my can. And boy, that really got things going. I was on a roll now. I was now socially acceptable because I didn't fill my pants anymore. And Uncle Jim, every once in a while, when I didn't have to go to the toilet, Uncle Jim and I would take a trip to the cemetery, which was just around the corner. St. Felix Cemetery. And we'd sit there. There was always a bench, a stone bench in the cemetery, and we'd sit there and we'd have a smoke. I would ride over to the cemetery on Uncle Jim's back, piggyback, and we'd have our smoke. That got to be a regular thing. Finally, Mom found out about it, that when we went to the cemetery, we went there to smoke. And so I'm getting to be about 5 years old now. This has gone on for a couple of years. And the guys at the filling station used to get a kick out of this little kid who smoked cigarettes and cigars. Anyway, the guys at the station decided that he's got to stop smoking. And so they made a deal with me that I would quit. Yeah, right. Anyway, I took my smoking materials up to the filling station and turned them in. And they had gotten together and bought me a little briefcase for little kids with crayons and pencils and erasers and little scissors and the Pages glue, which came in a bottle, and it had a little rubber tit on the top so that you could spread the glue. And so I had all my school supplies ready, and I began my academic career, kindergarten. But I still maintained my smoking habit. I was no longer allowed to buy cigars at the store. They wouldn't sell them to me anymore. But I managed to filch enough cigarettes to keep cigarettes at home, bankers' butts, to keep my bowels open. And that was how I began my smoking habit. And this continued until I joined the Navy. About 10 years later, when I was a teenager, I joined the Navy at age 18. And I've been smoking ever since. I tried quitting once. That was after I had a stroke. And that lasted for about a year until Susan and I took a trip to Seattle to visit some friends there. And one of her friends was she was diabetic, pretty much bedridden because she had so much neuropathy in her feet that she couldn't walk real well. And it had been some time since I'd been to Seattle, and this lady, had medical marijuana, and I guess it was some pretty good stuff. I don't know that much about marijuana, but she insisted I try this good stuff, and I didn't really want to, but I did. She gave me a joint, and I lit it and took a few tokes off from it, and coughed and nearly strangled, and that got me back to smoking again. And so I've been smoking. That's the story of my smoking career.
Okay, real quick before we wrap it up, how did you like that pot? The effects.
That was before. I think that was before we had all of this fancy stuff, but it was good. It was good stuff.
Okay, and how old were you then?
Oh, at that time, I guess I was probably in my 30s.
Okay, so that's quite a while ago.
Yeah, that was quite a while ago, but that's what got me off on the wagon again, and I've been smoking ever since.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dad.
You're welcome, sir.
I'll wrap this up.